My favorite report in the world to run is a search term report where SEMrush says you have 0 search volume or 10 searches a month, and I have more conversions than SEMrush says I have search volume. How could I have more conversions than searches? That stuff is fun, bro.
It's fascinating. I mean, it really is. And to hear that you threw out about 10% of SEMrush compared to what you see, that's staggering.
I think our industry is woefully underprepared.
Our guest today is Wil Reynolds. Wil is the founder and CEO of Seer Interactive, one of the most highly regarded digital marketing agencies in the country. A former teacher with a knack for advising, Wil is passionate about helping people and businesses grow. He's been helping Fortune 500 companies develop SEO and digital marketing strategies since 1999. So I want to ask you about, were they doing digital in 1999?
Yep.
I know. We'll get to that. Wil is also a highly sought-after keynote speaker, averaging between 10 to 20 keynotes every year. His profound knowledge and practical approach towards SEO, PPC, and digital strategy have made him a much sought-after speaker and consultant in the industry. Wil also serves Philadelphia's homeless and runaway youth at Covenant House, one of the leading homeless shelters in the city of Philadelphia. Wil Reynolds, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on today.
You are most welcome. And as we literally just learned off air, we're both in Philly and neither one of us even knew that. But
It's a big city, man.
We're gonna exactly. Small neighborhoods, big city, right? So,
Well said.
Right. Let's jump in to the company itself. I have to ask about, I saw this on your bio, and I'm just going to read verbatim for the people watching and listening. It said, Wil started Seer Interactive in 2002 after his boss wouldn't let him volunteer on his lunch break.
Yep.
Backstory, please.
All right. So the way I got my first job in search is I ended up just knocking on doors at companies I thought were doing something really cool back in August of 99. I was like, oh, you're working on computers. I think that's pretty cool. I went to school to be a teacher. So once I knew I wasn't going to teach, I just started knocking on doors, and it worked for me for my first job. So then I'm at a company, a Fortune 500 company, and this is 2001, 2002. Things were different then. You had like Jeans Fridays, crap like that. Right.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I was not happy there, and I decided to start knocking on doors at companies to try to get a job. It worked for me the first time, knocked on the first company's door. They're like, what? People don't do that. Everybody else just sends a resume in. I'm like, no, I'm knocking on your door. You're going to hear from me that I want to work here. I did that for like 18 months. I couldn't get a job. So I'm in the Philly area. Because back then, as you know, it was like, ooh, what's your pharma experience? I'm like, I'm doing search. There is no pharma algorithm for Google. Right? Or at that time, Alta Vista or Hotbot or whatever. So fast forward, my cousin gets sick and he's in the children's hospital. And, I'm sitting there and I'm noticing that the doctors come in, the nurses come in, they're giving medicine. Everything kind of reminds you that you're in a hospital and that you're sick when you're a kid. And the volunteers came in and just really took his mind off of things. And I was like, man, you know what? I love working with kids. It's my teaching background. I was like, you know what? I'm going to start volunteering at the children's hospital, just playing with sick kids on Wednesdays from 6 to 9. And the commute, since you're a Philly guy, I was coming from Hatboro and having to get to West Philly, down 76 in an hour. I get off work at 5, have to be there by 6. By the time you park, get the elevators, get upstairs, it wasn't happening. So I said to my boss at the time, I said, can I work through my lunch so I can, on Wednesdays, get in on time? I'm helping these parents, I'm helping these kids, whatever. And she's like, it wasn't like she was just like, no. She's like, I don't think we can do it this quarter, given the work that we have. And I was like, what? This is a Fortune 500. You should see that. You could hear the squeal marks at 5 p.m., leaving the parking lot. So it's like, nobody's staying late and working on nothing. And then that day I told my mom, I said, hey, Mom, I think I'm going to have to start my own thing. Because I've been knocking on doors for 18 months, trying to put my love of this work into another company. No one's hiring me. I've tried that for 18 months, knocking on doors. And now I'm just trying to volunteer and put some good in the world. And I can't even find time to do that. I was like, maybe I can start my own thing. And that's how the company got started.
It's amazing. I'm such a big believer. I think we all have these, I call them the what if moments, right? And I don't know if you ever thought about, what if your boss had said yes, that you could do this? You know?
Ooh, no one's ever asked. No one ever said that. Yeah. What if? Like, oh my God, my life could have been on a totally different trajectory, bro.
Right? I think we all have those handful of those what if moments, right?
They're pivotal.
And that happened for a reason.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
You almost have to thank her.
100%.
In a weird sort of way. Thank you for being such a, anyway. We won't go there. So the company's been around since 2002, right? Enormous success, incredible. Much kudos to you and your entire team. So let's do the, I wish I knew then what I know now.
Okay.
What are some things, if when you hear that you could go back and go, I wish, things I know now, and you can kind of segue or kind of slash that into advice for new business owners who are either just started or thinking of starting their own company, agnostic of industry. Well, what are some things, advice or things you wish to go back and do?
I don't think people are going to like this answer. Probably nothing.
Okay.
Because everything is part of what got me here, just like we just said. Like I needed my boss to say no. So let me tell you why I say that. I'm not going to just cop out. I think the way I've chosen to run my business, for instance, so here's an example. I, in order to accept your offer at Seer for the first 50 employees, you had to sign on to volunteer at least 3 hours a month at a nonprofit, or I didn't want to work with you, right? Now, I found out that was illegal after I could afford to get lawyers, and they started looking at my documents and stuff after it got big enough. And you're like, wait, you can't do that. You cannot make employment contingent on somebody volunteering, right? So technically, could I go back and be like, ooh, I wish I didn't expose myself to that risk? No, because it laid a groundwork and a roots for what this company was about that still stands today, right? I think the things that I did were naive. So I told the company I didn't want to get over 10 people when I first started. And I mean, that's the kind of thing that if I had to look back, if somebody really pressed me, I'd be like, you know what? Because I had to do some work to figure out, why do I only want to be 10 people? And for me, entrepreneurs tend to build companies in the vision of what they wish they had, for good or bad. And I hated feeling like a number in a company. I hated feeling like my raise or my bonus was predetermined, regardless of my effort, right? So then you start trying to build a company where I know my people and I get really deep with them and all that. And I chose to not grow the business in terms of headcount, for about a year and a half. And we just literally just turned away business. And, because I didn't want to get over a certain size. And looking back, but what happened is I started adding people on. So employee 11, employee 12, employee 13. And my team members started being like, yo, you keep saying we're not going to be over 10, but there's actually 13 of us in this room. And I'm like, oh. And I had to do the work to figure out, well, where's that coming from? And I think I also overweighted this idea of, if I had open books, if I was good to my people, if I shared in the profits with the people, that people would just stick with me forever. And because remember, I started the company, I was 24, 25. So I was idealistic about these things. And ultimately, people started leaving and whatnot. And I took it way too personally, because I was like, man, I'm giving up the growth of this business so that we can be this tight little unit. And our brand kept growing. So more people started knowing about us, but we just kept turning the work away. And I think that if there was anything that I would look back at, I'm glad I went through that, because I had to go through the work to be like, where is that coming from? Right. And it was, I didn't buy into just growth at all costs. So there's so much that comes from that, right? Most of these people with their advice, it's not for me. I've never had somebody advise me to be like, you know what you need to do? You need to create a volunteer program. I never had anybody advise me to tell me that my freaking janitor should make 70 grand a year, right? It's my version of building a great company is not based on what other people's rules typically are. Yep. So therefore, I've always kind of had to do things not on my own, but kind of in my own way. And that's why I don't have a lot of things that I'd go back and do differently, because it all led to me being where I am right now.
I love that. And I'm just going to say it because it's a Philly thing, man.
100%.
I love that. And that resonates with me more than you could. Trust me, when we talk offline, you'll hear it in my voice as well. That sense of, hey, thanks.
But check this out, right? I was chatting with a friend yesterday, and I was telling him that I'm starting to realize that my circle, the people that I'm around, the people in my network are nothing like the people I grew up around. And it bothers me, right? Like we had people coming out of, my dad's best friend, spent just a little bit of time in prison, but it might have been like a year or so. And like he had nowhere to go when he came back. So he lived in our house for like 2 or 3 months. My dad put him up. And it's like I had normal people around my house. Like I was a lower income, blue collar kid. Parents had regular jobs. They didn't worry about their personal brands and shit, and now I struggle a bit with that, if I'm being honest, because I look around my social circle and I'm like, where are the people that are like my parents?
It's a really interesting dynamic. I hadn't thought of it like that.
It's Philly shit.
It is Philly shit. And your friends and your circle and your and like, yeah, there's that confluence. But
yeah, like where are the military people in my network, right? Like we always had people that were military families that were up. I got new orders. I got redeployed. All right, we got to go. Or oh, dad's gone because there's a war somewhere, or mom's gone. And like, the kids in the community are like, how are we going to pick these people up and help them out? It's like now everybody works from home. They can freaking take off whenever they want. They can pick up their kids. They can adjust their schedules, and it's like, I'm like, nah, I didn't grow up around people like that. I grew up around people who punched a clock. Like if you didn't work, you didn't get paid. What are you talking about? Vacation days, right? And I struggle with that, with all the quote unquote success that I have. It's like, there's this other side of it that's like, I don't want to be separated from people like my parents.
Right. It would be almost oxymoronic.
But that's what success looks like, given how we define it, right? So look at the things you got, look at the company you built. And it's like, no, success is not getting separated from regular freaking people that punch a clock, that work hourly, that like don't have these privileges that we have. The more it's harder to recognize your privilege, the more the people you hang out with have the same privilege as you,
Yep. Exactly. It's really profound. I love that. And it is 1,000,000,000% a Philly thing. And some people don't get it. And you know what? To that I go, sorry, not my problem.
It's like you put on your pants the same way I do, bro. Like these people, they're so impressed by other people's shit and what they've done. I'm like, look, man, like that's good for you, good for your family. At the end of the day, like you put your pants on the same way I do, and this city will not let you forget that.
Listen, one of the hallmarks of my success has been, and I know this is going to resonate with you, is just 1,000,000,000% transparent. But it's not a conscious thing. It's just who I am. And I know that's how you look at it. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm just being me.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it. Some people leave it. Okay. Have a nice life.
I'm going to be all right. You'll be all right. Like, you don't have to take this advice. You don't have to take my mentorship. You don't have to take whatever it is I'm saying. You can tell me I'm full of shit. That is completely fine. Doesn't affect my ability to be the dad I want to be. Doesn't affect the ability for me to be the kind of person I want to be to my wife, my parents. So, all right.
Yep.
I'll see you on the other side.
I'll see you on the other side. Exactly. However, if you want in, I got your back.
Oh, now that's, almost to a fault, man. I think, it's like I'm loyal to to the death, when you talk about like, oh, we're going to stay under 10 people and blah, 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 blah. Where does that come from? It's like, because I was like overly loyal to the death and naive, if I'm being real.
Expand on that a little bit. What do you mean by that?
Dude, I was 24 or whatever when I started the business. You're just like, oh, if you just opened the books and everybody knew how much the company made, so they didn't have to worry about, is the company trying to pull a fast one? And you shared the profits with people, and like you gave them the world's best health insurance you could afford, and they could see everything, then they would work with you forever, and you would just kick ass forever. Whoops. We got a dog in the office.
It's the real world.
It's the real world. So we'll just edit that out.
Now, it's fine. No, it's real.
True too.
We just said it's transparent. Right. What I'm putting on air, some Lord knows Philly, we don't do that.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. We're going to get back to our show in one quick second, but stay with me. If you're in the need for anything SEO and or link building related, you need to do yourself one quick favor. You need to go to the website that's on the screen right now, stanventures.com. Go there, tell them Steve-O sent you. The rest will take care of itself. Trust me. You can thank me later.
I want to segue into something I read about you, about your pet projects. I forgot where I read it. It may have been on your site. And there's two of them that I want to talk about. It says, one of them is around using big data tools to look at search. Talk a little bit about that. What did you mean by that?
Dude, I love the opportunity to look at an industry. It's like such a privilege. It's my job. I get to look at this industry and go, I've been at this since 1999. So I'm on my 25th year this August. And to have an opportunity and a platform to be like, where are we all maybe getting things wrong? I think our industry is woefully underprepared for the amount of processing power data you're going to need to be able to truly understand the amount of unique queries that people are going to be putting into Google. The tools that we use today, SEMrush, whatnot, like, dude, you should see, like, I'll take a paid search query report, which gives me every query I showed up for, and I'll compare it to what SEMrush has in their database, and I'll be like, oh, they only have 10% of all the things that my customers searched for. And what does SEMrush get? Well, the big words. It's the longer tail, that query that's only searched for 5 times, 10 times, maybe a month or a year. And like, once you start to put that much data in a spreadsheet, it's going to break. People need to elevate their game. They got to get it out of spreadsheets, get it into BigQuery, get it into, Tableau, Power BI. You got to really be able to crunch that data down. And then you're going to move into LLMs, where every query is a MSV of 1. Every query is an MSV of 1 in an LLM world. Why? Because we can talk in our natural language. We can add things like, what's a great CRM for a company under 5 people with blah, 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 blah. Query of 1. So now all of a sudden, you don't have less sales. You don't have less people in the marketplace looking for CRMs. The problem is to try to amalgamate them into groups. It's going to be super difficult. So I've loved the process of looking at my paid search data and my organic data together to really understand how long is that long tail. And like, if you don't know how to process that, like, I got you, because everybody's got freaking the same access to SEMrush and Ahrefs, bro. It's like, I'm able to see 90% of queries that you don't even look at because you don't partner with your paid search team. So I'm going to find that stuff out super early. I got the tools to dig through that data and surface that data for me instantly. And you don't see it. That kind of stuff is super fun.
It's fascinating. I mean, it really is. And to hear that stat you threw out, about 10% of SEMrush compared to what you see, that's staggering.
Bro, it's crazy. I looked at a client once and looked at the number of conversions that they had, actual conversions from paid, right? Leads. And I said, if I take all the search terms that drove leads for this client, SEMrush only had 50% of the keywords in their database. You're like, holy smokes, half of the words that drove volume of leads for me, SEMrush doesn't even have. Like, that's crazy. It's half your leads. SEMrush has a version of that word maybe, but not those little things that people added in, right? And because I'm using my paid search queries, I'm bringing them in every day. So if something new changes in the world and people start using new words, SEMrush is reporting a 0 MSV on that. It doesn't exist. There's no volume. Why would you go after a keyword with no volume? My favorite report in the world to run is a search term report where SEMrush says you have 0 search volume or 10 searches a month, and I have more conversions than SEMrush says I have search volume. You're like, how can I have more conversions than searches? Yeah. That stuff is fun, bro.
You just hit on it. You said if people start using new words, they will.
It's inevitable. And I think LLMs are going to make it 1,000 times worse. It's MSV of 1. Every one of those queries is so freaking unique that how are you going to keep up? I know how I'm going to keep up. I'm going to look for like every paid search query that includes the word for at the end. Why? Because these LLMs are teaching us to be like, put in a role, put in your use case. Like, I am a this, and I'm for this, right? So now I'm starting to be like, that'd be like, if I want to understand how people are going to search on LLMs, if the LLMs like Bing right now are starting to play around with autocomplete to make, so the problem with LLMs is a lot of people don't know how to use them. So therefore they get bad answers. And when they get bad answers, they blame Google or Bing, right? So Google and Bing have an incentive to create autocompletes on your prompts so that they kind of nudge you in a direction that'll make you more likely to get a better answer. When you look at what Bing is doing with autocomplete, you go, oh, they're saying you should do this thing for your use case. So now I'm taking a client's keyword, let's say it's CRM. For is the word I'm looking for in all their paid queries. And I'm looking at all the different ways that customers are saying, I don't just want a CRM, I want a CRM for these different use cases. And I go, aha, that's like how people are going to start searching on LLMs. Do I see 4 keywords growing more over time? If yes, then maybe my customers are there more, right? So it's stuff like that. It's just really fun, but you cannot do that with the current set of tooling that exists. And like, to pull out 10 keywords, 20, 100, 1,000, because it's not going to be enough.
It's not even going to forget about the tip of the iceberg. You can't even see the iceberg. Another one of your pet projects, this one's really near and dear to my heart, is busting silos between divisions. I can't tell you, dude, how much that I've written about this in Forbes and other publications. Like, silo is literally and figuratively a 4-letter word, and it is the death knell for companies. So I really want to hear your thoughts on how are you busting those silos?
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Teams are not incentivized to be customer-centric. They are incentivized to be channel-specific. Mm-hmm. So the problem with that is you optimize the channel. You don't optimize for the customer. So how we can live in a world where if you type in black OBGYN on Google, we as humans know what somebody's looking for when they put the word black in front of OBGYN. Right? You're looking for a African American or black OBGYN. This isn't rocket science. You click on the paid ads and you're like, white people, white people, white people, white people, white people. Then you look at the organic and you're like, black doctors, black doctors, black doctors, black doctors, black doctors. How is it that just 15 or 20 pixels down from the paid search, all the right answers exist? If you said to an SEO, hey, we got to rank for the word black OBGYN, the last thing they would say is, let's not talk at all about the black experience when it comes to medical care. Let's not put any black people on the page. Why would we do that? Why would we highlight our black doctors? No, you wouldn't do that. No, they'd be like, dude, you got to do all this. But yet in paid, they go, you can do that all day. We'll take your money all day. And you watch leaders of divisions not really give a shit. And you watch them do that because you're like, oh, they don't care because they're optimizing for the channel, not the customer experience. So you literally watch a hospital system organically ranking for black OBGYN or whatever, and you watch them also showing up in paid search, and you're like, do you see if I click on your paid ad, how I don't get an answer that's correct? But then if I go down 50 pixels and click on the organic result, you already have a page that talks about this.
Right.
And then you just watch people go, oh, but then, well, how do I change that in my organization given my KPIs? And I'm like, that's your organization. I'm just here to show you that and to show you that I have systems built at scale to help you find those problems and to tell you how much it's costing you and why we should fix it, right? Search for the word tarjetas de crédito. It's in Spanish. I have a client who is spending millions a year on that keyword, driving people to English paid search landing pages. And Google is showing English paid search landing pages for every major bank for that keyword. But yet, there's no English words at all in any of the organic. Like, what are we doing here? It's like when I call your, when I call your phone number for support, you ask me press 1 for Espanol. So why is it that as a company, we prioritize and have for 10 years, 20 years in our phone trees, that if somebody says, I want to speak to you in Spanish, we allow them to get Spanish. But yet in page search, it's like, oh, I'll pay 60% more to convert these people because I'm not speaking their language. And Seer, if you find that problem, well, I'm not really incentivized for that. So therefore, my KPI is growth at all costs. So I don't really want to solve for that problem. Okay, sure. We're just going to have bad customer experiences because we're channel specific. If the channel hits the KPI, they're good. Whereas somebody with some vision at the C level needs to go, we cannot allow for our company to give people English landing pages for Spanish language queries that we're spending millions of dollars on. It's costing us 60% more to convert them when we have the exact same thing offline on the phone and we've had it for 15 years.
You're right, though. It has to start at the C level. It just does. And you're so spot on about the KPIs. Well, the KPIs are wrong. You have to start there.
The KPIs incentivize siloed thinking. If Correct. The KPI for your paid team isn't doesn't have some component of it that's like, are we putting people on the page that best answers their question, regardless of whether or not they convert? Like, are we trying to actually answer their question well? Like, that to me is a vision. When somebody gets to a page, we want to get better at actually answering their specific questions. Then everybody knows what to do from there. Now you start to break silos down because people go, and I want you all to get together to figure out how you're going to use each other's data for the good of this goal. But without that, it's just a bunch of like, oh, yeah, you're spending millions. Yeah, we are. But those millions are also part of that inefficiency. Like, I'm not incentivized as a marketer to lower my marketing budget, right? So it's like, ooh, if you start finding all these places where I'm just wasting money, then you give me money back in my budget that I already had earmarked to spend. So you're creating a problem for me. My power dynamics are all based on how big is my team and how much my budget is. So ego-wise, it's, the bigger my team, the more important I am. The bigger my budget is, the more important I am. So when somebody comes in and says, hey, you can do more with less, it's like, yeah, I will if the CFO says it. But if it comes bottom up from an agency partner, like,
I wrote an article years ago, and I think it's applicable here. And it was, I forget the exact title, but it was basically, these are the most dangerous words in history. And the words are that's the way we've always done it. I think it's so applicable to so many things, right? Above and beyond the marketing business world, which I won't get into. But in our world, in this world, I think there is such a comfort, if that's the word, or just a reflex to go, you know what? We're just going to keep doing things the way we've always done it. I think this applies to this.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's my job. My job is I get to sit in this seat and think, where are we as an industry doing something that we've been told is the right thing, that I can look at and be like, this is the right thing. Like, this low quality crap we're doing is the right thing. All right. Sending people to pages that aren't in their language when they specifically search in their language. That's the right thing. Really?
It's even more problematic, at least in my experience, when you try to get people to change and they'll push back on, wait a minute, we're hitting our numbers. Why do we need to change anything?
Right. Because of the incentives.
Exactly. Oh, no, I got my bonus. I'm not changing a thing. Okay. If that's the way you want to look at it, fine. It's human nature. I'm a student of you. I know you are. I can tell you are too. It's fascinating why people do things the way they do. Armchair psychologist, pick a term. I am definitely that. So, hey, as we're recording this, I want to get your thoughts on this. But as we're recording this, Google's cookie, finally, it looks like it's dead, was just announced after literally years of starting and stopping.
Yep.
So I want to get your thoughts on just in general, what do you think was behind the decision to stop it? And does this decision to not eliminate third-party cookies have any effect on SEO?
So about 6 months ago, I broke down when Apple came out and was like, privacy. Like, privacy is going to be in the browser specifically. I think it was like 2017 or something. ITP or whatever it's called. I'm not too deep on this stuff, but like ITP 15, whatever the freaking thing was. And they're like, okay, we're going to launch this new browser thing that'll like eliminate cookies after 7 days or whatever it might be. Apple announced that in like 17, and by like the beginning of 18, I think it was done. And you're like, all right, so Apple got rid of these cookies in like 18, 19, whatever year it was. And Google came out 6 months later, like, we're going to do it too. And then I watched how long it was taking. And I'm like, Google, it hurts their cash cow too much. So Apple, this is where Apple's got Google. This is where Apple's got Google. Because Apple, a lot of what I'm realizing about these platforms and the internet is about what land you own. Apple owns mobile real estate, desktop real estate. I cannot get to Google on a Google device for the most part, right? I get to Google through other people's devices who I compete with. Therefore, Apple can be like, we don't make money on ads that much. We're going to torch cookies and put pressure on all of our other competitors. And Google can't do nothing about it, right? Now, Google owns Android. So Google on mobile is like, we have owned real estate on mobile, but I don't think you're calling me today from a Chromebook. So Google has no desktop real estate. Like, you can't install Chrome on a Google laptop en masse. I mean, of course, there's Chromebooks, but nobody uses them, right? So really, Google's like, damn, all of our Chrome traffic is on a Microsoft device, which is Windows when it comes to desktop, or it's on an Apple device on desktop and mobile. Thank God we have Android. So Google's like, we have to produce Pixel phones, because if we don't own part of the real estate, we're always up to someone else's whims, and Apple can change their mind and do what they did to Facebook. Now, luckily, Facebook's AI ended up really backfilling, but like, you watch Facebook, their stock cratered. Why? Because Apple's like, we're going to change cookies on you guys. Why do you think Zuckerberg's so hardcore on was so hard on the VR shit? He's like, I have to try to find somewhere where I can own property, because otherwise I'm always rented land and Apple can change their mind about privacy and destroy me. So I knew that Google didn't have the fortitude to hurt their cash cow enough to get rid of the cookies. It was like a thing, you could just see it. You're like, Apple did this in a year, because their cash cow isn't cookie-based advertising. Google's 75% of their revenue comes on people clicking on ads. You really want to eliminate in Chrome cookies? It's going to hurt that ad business. That's why I also think that Google is going to have a reckoning with the future of AI, because ultimately they're going to have to take some amount of a few years of some punches on revenue, which the street is not going to like, to try to figure out, how do we properly put AI answers in front of people? It's only going to take up more real estate. It's going to make it harder to get clicks on paid ads, right? So I don't think Google knows how to innovate in that sense anymore. They're too beholden to the street and hitting numbers. So therefore, they just add another ad. Think about Google in terms of their search ad product. It went from one ad, two ads, blue box, yellow box. Now it's white background. Now it's 4 ads. Now they're putting ads in the middle of the scroll. Then they have infinite scroll, so you don't know when the page stops. More ads. It's like, man, you guys are just trying to get more ads in the same little real estate, which is also just getting people to want to use other places more. So yeah, I think Google's in trouble.
I agree with you. My thoughts are, Google's ultimate decision to not eliminate third-party cookies, a good part of it came from brands pressuring them, going, you can't do this. You need to, like, once and for all, you're jerking us around, whatever the reasons were over the past, whatever number of years it was. Because you know this, I've written about it. I'm sure you've seen it and even talked about it. Brands scrambling to get more first-party data for the fear of that cookieless world, right? So you saw a lot of loyalty programs launched, for example, a lot of experiential events happening, all to capture first-party data, of course, with the thought being, we're not going to be able to cookie somebody third-party anymore. Now, like, hold on, never mind, right? And I happen to think brands pressured Google tremendously, going, you cannot do this. That's my thought.
So the problem is that if you get any amount of traffic from people that use Apple devices, you are dealing with a lack of cookies already. So
Correct.
You got to do the work regardless, which sucks, right? Like, you have to now do the work regardless, because if enough of your customers are on Apple devices, then you've got to manage the fact that Apple's deleting cookies after 7 days and all the stuff they're doing for privacy. So you have to manage it anyway. So Google not doing it, unless you just want to go all in on Google's platforms and whatnot. But your customers, you can't tell your customer what device they can use. So therefore, you've got a ton of customers using Apple devices. So you still have to figure out how to market to those customers while you still have a black hole. Google just kept that black hole from getting bigger for now. It's going to be interesting.
It is. Regardless of the reasoning behind it, it is going to be interesting. And I think there's going to be, over the next 1 to 2 years, enormous change. Like you said, Google's going to take some hits. The way it is, they're going to take hits.
They are.
You know?
They're going to have to. Like, I can't imagine a world where they can put those AI answers in the results and not have it impact paid. Now, which maybe they're hoping for is that those AI results, people just keep refining them and refining them and refining them and asking more questions. So then you get more queries. And maybe you can drop your click-through rates, but if you increase your number of queries, you might be okay. It's going to be interesting.
It is. It is. Well, listen, my friend, I'm looking at the clock. We are coming up against it. I'm already envisioning a part 2 because this is fascinating, and there's a bunch of stuff we can get to. But I want to thank you for coming on. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's fun to flesh these ideas out and banter a bit, right? So yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you again, my friend. Have a great day.
Hey, I'm the guy from the video you just saw. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Now do yourself a favor. If you haven't already, subscribe to our content. Believe it or not, unconfirmed rumors and reports, you will see an increase in 20% in organic traffic just by subscribing. Okay, maybe not, but it's fun, right? But do yourself a favor, really. Subscribe to our content. You won't be sorry. Thanks.